Trump waging an actual drug war against the cartels, this time around blowing up the 10th, that's right, the 10th drug vessel. These are boats, including submersible, which is really like a submarine, although it doesn't go deep. It just goes below the surface of the water to evade detection. But the Trump Department of War, led by my friend Secretary of Defense, or Secretary of War, rather, Hegseth, has been taking the fight, truly taking the fight, to the drug cartels in Venezuela. And here's what Trump says.
I think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead.
Yep. He says it. Pretty straightforward. We're going to kill them, you know. They're going to be like dead. The president has decided that after designating these groups like Tren de Aragua as narco-terrorists, they will be treated as terrorists, and therefore this will actually be something much more like a war than the so-called war on drugs has been in the past. No more cartel boats full of fentanyl and other drugs flooding America. And not just, remember, it's not just that it kills people in overdoses, which is the thing that is the gut punch for everybody in communities all across the country. Losing loved ones, losing young people, moms, dads, husbands, brothers, sons. That's going on to the roughly about 100,000 a year number. I think last year it went down to the 90s, but it's been well over 100,000 in recent years. But there's also the degradation of society that occurs because of this. For example, we often talk about the war on, not just the war on drugs, we talk about the war on crime, or rather, Trump wants to limit crime and bring down the number of murders in this country substantially. Certainly a very worthy goal. Well, what are most shootings? Most shootings involve what in America? Gang-related activity. And if you go to inner city anywhere in any major metropolitan area, a lot of the homicides, even a majority of the homicides, involve, sure, there's some that are armed robbery and just that kind of criminality, but a lot of the time it is drug turf. And it is people shooting each other over gang-related incidents. These gangs really only are able to fund themselves through the sale of drugs. So if you can dramatically pull back their ability to get drugs like fentanyl, there's also obviously cocaine, heroin, other things, but if you can get their ability to get their hands on those drugs to be substantially less, you are cutting off the funding and really the incentive in many ways, the financial incentive for this kind of criminal activity. And then there's also, on the user end side of this, the people who are the drug addicts, they commit crimes. This is what happened, say, in a city like San Francisco, where I know they're turning it around now, but they had largely decriminalized drug use in certain places in the public, in public squares and parks. And what you have is people then just are doing these drugs. They're incredibly addictive. And fentanyl is both very deadly and very addictive, very easy to overdose on, and incredibly hard to get off of. And so they just become these addict zombies who will do anything. They will give up the rest of their lives, whatever relationships and whatever aspirations they have. They give up the rest of their lives in order to feed the habit, and that can involve, usually does involve, criminality. They'll start to steal. They'll sell drugs themselves so that they can feed their drug habit. It just all spirals. So illegal drugs are terrible for this country in a whole range of ways. And specifically, fentanyl needs to be treated as something very serious. And I'll tell you this, Senator Marco Rubio is not backing off this. I'm sorry, I said Senator. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is not backing off this at all either. Here's what he says.
Bottom line, these are drug boats. If people want to stop seeing drug boats blow up, stop sending drugs to the United States.
But does it matter if it's in the United States?
Well, these are all in international waters.
The boat. Do a strike in the United States, or if
well, that's a different matter. Now you're talking about a law enforcement matter. In this particular case, there are people traveling on international waters headed towards the United States with hostilities in mind, which includes flooding our country with dangerous, deadly drugs. And they're going to be stopped. And that's what's happening. And In the case last week, you saw there was a submarine. It was a submarine. It was a submersible. That's a drug boat all the way through. We know what these boats are. The president just said it. We track them from the very beginning. We know who's on them, who they are, where they're coming from, what they have on them. If you're running drug boats, you're in grave danger.
Yeah. People want to stop seeing drug boats blown up, stop sending drugs to the United States. The Democrats, I understand, are going to make a big deal of this. Some Republicans are starting to make a big deal about this. But here's the problem Democrats have. They blew up a U.S. citizen without trial who was not engaged in any imminent lethal activity with Anwar al-Awlaki. And they blew up his son, too, who's 16 years old, also a U.S. citizen. So the Obama administration set the precedent for, under a covert action authority, killing Americans without trial and who were not an active combatant. Now, I understand you could say, well, they were plotting and they were doing bad things. Okay, yeah, but they weren't about to fire a rocket at somebody. They weren't about, they didn't have a gun in their hands taking part in active operations when they were killed. So, and I'd also remind everybody that the decision to have the raid on bin Laden, I mean, and I think it was the right move, but SEAL Team 6 went in there and it was a kill mission. They killed bin Laden. And that was on presidential authority as well. So let's not pretend like everybody in every circumstance all over the world, all the bad guys, even when Democrats are in charge, get to have, ACLU provided attorneys and get to drag everything out and make it. No, it's actually not the way things have worked, or rather not the way things have worked even when Democrats were in charge. So I think that's very important. I think it's notable that the Democrats are the ones that set this precedent, and so I will continue to point this out. Our sponsor is Preborn. Preborn is saving the lives of tiny babies day in and day out. Consider how they welcomed Victoria at one of their clinics. Victoria was scared, confused, and desperate when she first walked into a Planned Parenthood clinic, and they handed her the abortion pill. But she knew immediately this was a tragic mistake, and she then went to a preborn clinic where truth and clarity broke through. There, the loving staff members gave her immediate care and helped her save not just her baby's life, but her own. Victoria got truthful answers about matters related to her unborn child at that preborn clinic, because when a mother hears that heartbeat, lives are saved. Just $28 provides a free ultrasound to women like Victoria. That single gift, the experience of meeting her unborn child, makes all the difference. And this is your chance to make a difference, too. Will you answer the call? Pick up your phone, dial pound 250, that's pound 250, and say baby. Pound 250, say baby, or donate securely at preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK. Sponsored by Preborn. And so now you got Democrats who are really making some noises about this one, like, for example, Cory Booker.
When we took the extrajudicial step to blow up speedboats, there has been no oversight into that claimed attack on people that were allegedly smuggling drugs. We are constantly not doing our job, which is not a partisan one. It is to hold this president in check, that no one operates without accountability and without transparency, because power is corrupting. And when you let someone do what they want to do, when they want to do it, without a check or a balance, it is corrupting. And
So we need to have accountability, he says. Okay, what is that going to be? We're supposed to now have these individuals who are bringing this fentanyl into the country, they're going to get a taxpayer-funded trial, or maybe they're just going to plead, and this is going to keep happening. Here's the problem that Democrats face with this. I understand that it can seem harsh, and it is. It's taking life. It's very serious business. But remember, we were taking a lot of lives in the Northwest Frontier Province with drone strikes based upon plotting against America. Again, Obama administration strikes. Obama dramatically ramped up the drone program in the places like Waziristan, Northwest Frontier Province, Quetta, these places in Pakistan where there were these extremists operating, and they were some of the strikes, some of those places were just where extremists were. They weren't. Anyway, the point is they were doing strikes in these areas, and they weren't given trial. They were treated as They were treated as a clear and present danger, and there were lethal orders given to strike people in a country with which we were not at war. Okay, we were taking people out in Pakistan under the Obama administration for years and years. And I'm going to tell you, I actually don't disagree with what he was doing. Just because Obama did it didn't make it wrong. Just because Obama gave the order for the bin Laden raid, obviously that was the right move. And using drones in the FATA, the federally administered tribal area of Pakistan, and the Northwest NWFP, the Northwest Frontier Province, this is along the border with Afghanistan. It was the right move. It was effective, actually. You don't hear about this a lot, but killed a lot of Al-Qaeda. It's true. We did. Now, why is that so different than cartels designated and told you are not allowed to keep bringing drugs into this country? Because the people that will overdose from one of these drug trafficking boats aren't to be considered of the same urgency as people that were trying to avoid getting blown up on a plane or something from the terrorist maniacs of Al-Qaeda. I mean, the more you think this thing through, the more clear I think it becomes that the war on drugs has to actually be more like a war. Everything else is not going to stop them. A long time ago, I went to briefings with the DEA when I was a CIA officer, and obviously the briefing itself, they were giving us very tactical stuff, was classified back then. But I can tell you the broad spectrum, unclassified reality of the DEA then, and it has always been the reality of the Drug Enforcement Administration, is as long as people are able to become very rich selling this poison into America, and the worst thing they really face is going to prison in an American jail, they're going to keep doing it. And these cartels, which are now operating really at nation-state level in the case of Venezuela, where you have the narco traffickers run the country. In fact, the people in the government are narco traffickers. President, the vice president, they're dictators, but these are the titles they use. So they're funding their oppression and their tyranny of people in Venezuela through the drug trade. Yes, also oil, but the drug trade is a big part of it too. That's ready cash that they have access to. And obviously, you're already evading the authorities. It's not like we're going to officially sanction opioids coming into the country. It's already illegal. So that's something else to keep in mind here. There's a lot of downstream effects, negative downstream effects to our southern neighbors. Mexico is a huge example of this, of the drug trade, and finding a way to actually stop it or to limit it. Stopping it's probably not possible, but to limit it substantially, I think people are going to agree with Trump on this one. We're sick of Americans being poisoned by fentanyl. We're sick of it. And we're sick of people dying from it. And we don't want this to be going on anymore. And enough is enough. All right, let me tell you something pretty awesome. This is from our sponsor, Paradigm Press. I've launched this new thing, Money and Power. I really want you to check this out. I want you to subscribe. I've teamed up with my brother, actually. He's a phenomenal stock analyst, went to Columbia Business School, and had worked at a big hedge fund in New York. And we've teamed up, and I'm bringing you the political stories, and he's bringing you a stock portfolio that aligns with what I see happening. It's just a really cool project, and you got to go check it out. We call it Money and Power. And I think there's something happening with AI that I'm calling Manhattan Project 2 that you're going to find fascinating, and there's real ways to profit off this. You can see there's a portfolio that we publish as part of this project where we're picking stocks. And this is it's public. It's all done out there, so you can see, and everything is time-stamped. When you see how well this portfolio is done, you've just got to go check this out. Go to insider2025.com. That's insider2025.com. Now, we have the possibility here, which we have to take, I think, very seriously, of the Trump administration not only striking in international waters these cartel drug boats, but also that this may escalate. I mentioned Mexico before. This may get involved with the Mexican cartels, who are very sophisticated, share a border with us, a lot of money, a lot of influence, and ruthless and violent on the same level as Al-Qaeda. Different goal than Al-Qaeda, but they'll murder anybody. They'll saw off anybody's head on video. I mean, they are absolutely brutal. We haven't really gone after the Mexican part of this equation, and that's going to be the big turning point, I think. It's one thing to blow up a narco vessel in international waters. Venezuela is far away from us. The Venezuelan government, cartels, which is the same thing, really, their ability to hit back at us is very limited. If we start going after Sinaloa, Jalisco New Generation or Nuevo Generation cartel, the Gulf cartel, some of these have been long-standing players, and there's other new cartels, and there's even independent little cartels. They're all fighting it out for turf and territory in Mexico. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the illegal drug trade. And now you have to remember the human trafficking part of this is way down because Trump has secured the border. So with that, the illegal drug sales component is only even more fiercely contested, right? Because the plaza, the place along the border that's controlled for human trafficking purposes now is the drugs are what's going to make the money, not just letting illegals come into our country and they pay essentially a fee, almost like a tax to the cartels to cross. So this is the big interesting moment, I think, that we see ahead of us here, which is the same counterterrorism apparatus that we used against Al-Qaeda that is now being used to track and destroy cartel boats in the Caribbean in international waters. Is that going to be used to go after the cartels in Mexico? Are we going to have tier 1 military assets that are doing raids on senior cartel bosses? Are we going to be using drones armed with Hellfires? I mean, is this where it's all going? It looks like it is, to me. And that will be something. So keep an eye on that one. Finally, here, our sponsor, Preborn. They do amazing work. They're saving babies in the womb. If you're pro-life, please consider a donation to Preborn. Pick up your phone, dial pound 250, and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, say baby. They bring pregnant women into their clinics. They introduce the baby to mom via ultrasound, and then they help those moms through the pregnancy and for 2 years after. It's a beautiful organization. They're saving tiny babies. You can donate securely at preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK. Sponsored by Preborn. Have a great weekend. Shields high.